to Building and Repairing Guitars. I'm your host, Alexa, and today we are joined with having Sean and Mike here. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Welcome.
So first off, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about what sparked your interest in building guitars?
Well, basically just started with me taking my guitars and pulling them apart and swapping parts out, and then resoldering in pickups and stuff. I had like zero interest in acoustics at this point because the only one I had was subpar. And one day I was having to smoke with my one of my good friends, and I had been researching it for probably about 2 years, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And he found a school out in Minnesota as well for engineering, like recording engineering. So we're like, you know what? We're going to do it this summer. We're moving out there and we're going to go make our dreams a reality.
Wow.
And 2 years later, here I am, working, making it work, so.
That's awesome. And Sean, what about you?
My story is a lot less interesting, actually. My father inspired me to go to Michigan to build guitars. We'd both been talking about doing something together as like kind of a father-son business endeavor. And he was just like, well, we both have a passion for instruments. Why don't you go try to construct them? And so that's, I saved money and made my way out to Michigan. And 6 months later, I'm, doing it.
That's awesome. And so growing up, did you all play guitars a lot? Did you play in a band? Or what really kind of inspired you with really even kind of getting into researching guitars like you mentioned first?
For me, there's not a single musical person in my family. People enjoy music, but nobody that actually plays instruments, so I was the first to actually pursue it and continue to do it. So I started a band in high school. It was a punk rock band. And my first electric guitar, still learning to play. So I decided, this doesn't sound good. Let me look up, see how I can fix this, because I'm a fan of being able to fix things myself. Mm-hmm. So, if I could change the oil on my car myself, I'll do it. I'm not going to pay somebody to do it,
Right.
So that's basically how that came about. I just started swapping parts out, and I was like, I would like to try building. So I bought a kit of just blank wood. Didn't turn out very well. Didn't even make it to a guitar stage yet. I was like, I like this. I don't have the proper tooling to do it. Mm-hmm. So I would totally like to see maybe there's schools or something. So I started researching schools, and found one that I liked. Biggest thing for me was financial aid. So that's part of the reason I went to this school. I have zero regrets going into that school. It was Minnesota State Southeast Technical College. Mm-hmm. They have a Luthier program. They also have a violin program and like a band instrument program.
Oh, wow.
So they have a lot of music stuff going on there, which is really cool. So like more than half of the school is somehow related to music. The other half is nurses. So, but after going to school, that's when I truly fell in love with acoustics and was like, this is what I want to do. I want to build acoustic guitars. Granted, I love repair too, but it's a good way to keep money coming in while I'll be able to start building, and that's basically it.
Awesome. And
Well, for me, I've been playing, guitar and even some other instruments like drums and bass since I was an early teenager. However, my real inspiration to continue this passion was while I was in school, actually. I didn't realize that creating an instrument was it's a beautiful marriage of like science and art. Like there actually is a lot of science that goes into creating these instruments. Like when you're working with your hands, I guess it never occurred to me anyway that you'd have to be doing all these mathematical calculations aside from measuring, of course. But there is a whole realm of acoustic engineering that goes into manufacturing instruments. Everything has its place and its point. The strings are excited by the player, which in turn excites the saddle, which excites the bridge, and then the guitar itself is like a massive air pump, which generates an air resonance and everything. So that's, I know it might sound a little nerdy to some people, and I can be a bit of a nerd. Don't let the long sleeves and glasses in summer fool you. No. But that's pretty much when I discovered my passion. I was like, this is something I actually want to pursue. Like once I get out of here, I'm going to take this knowledge and really put it to use, make it worth something.
That's really awesome. And so you mentioned in school that there were also other instruments that you could learn about, like violins and things of that nature. Do you all also repair other instruments or strictly guitars?
I myself have had a couple of different stringed instruments. We don't do violins at the shop because that is entirely a whole nother beast, which usually requires some sort of finish work, which is something our shop isn't currently set up to do. Because a lot of times you got to pull backs off, you got to basically dismantle the entire thing because it's such a small area to work inside. There's barely any tools you could get in there to try and glue stuff up. But I've worked on a bouzouki, which is an Irish instrument similar to a lute. We'll do ukuleles, mandolins, quite a bit of stringed instruments. A guitarrón, which is a Spanish instrument. It's really weird, but that one was interesting. For the longest time before I got there, there was a sitar.
Wow.
That was just this restoration thing that just kind of went on. So, and it was just like, never again. So, I guess there's a good amount of string instruments that we can work on. If I don't feel comfortable on it, I'm not going to go diving into your instrument and potentially mess it up. So, right. You got to know when to turn stuff down and when to say yes and stuff like that. So, it's... Yeah.
Okay, that's neat. So you mentioned the shop. Can you tell me a little bit about the shop, and do you all have like particular temperatures that you have to keep things because of particular woods that you might use?
Yeah.
Or
at Action Music we have humidity control
throughout the entire store.
We have a lot of, the instruments themselves, especially acoustic instruments, are very
susceptible to humidity change.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And actually, if you look over here at the monitor, you'll see that we have some footage from the shop. Can you tell us a little bit about what's taking place in some of this footage here?
That one is I'm tweaking the truss rod, and I'm not sure what I'm doing there, but I was screwing something in. Probably a pickup. Yeah, that's what that was.
Yeah.
I was putting a pickup back in place.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's some more there.
Yep. Oh, this is me testing the radius of a mandolin, and now I'm sighting the neck, and it's switching so fast. This is me actually checking the relief of the neck, which is the neck of a guitar or any stringed instrument really has a certain amount of bowing in it, so it'll bow either backwards or forwards, which that's what we call relief. You want to try to get the neck as straight as possible is kind of the goal.
Yeah, there's certain limits that we like to keep it within, but it's really all dependent on the player.
Yeah.
Usually our general guidelines are good for the majority of the players, but we have certain customers that come in and it's like, all right, this guy, he likes super high action. This guy likes super low action.
Okay.
And action is the height of the strings from the frets. So if you got really high action, you have to put more pressure down, usually harder to play.
Okay.
Also could cause issues with intonation, with the notes playing in tune, because you're basically what you're doing is stretching the string and pulling it too tight or not tight enough, which could cause intonation issues, which is something most people don't understand. Like, you get people like, oh, my guitar doesn't play in tune. Well, lighten up your left hand a little bit. You know, you don't need to press the strings all the way down to the fingerboard.
Okay, okay. Oh, and is that here kind of what you're saying about some of the different, with the strings and things of that nature? Do you all focus more on ensuring that the sound still is just at an amazing level, or do you sometimes focus more on what the aesthetics of the actual final product is? May it be like fancy designs you might do, or?
Well, repairing a guitar is or can be a compromise, but of course we always strive to make it the best for the individual player.
I've run into instances
yeah.
where if the neck is too straight, it might play fine, but everything just sounds dead and compressed. So
There are lots of variables.
You have to find that balance.
That's interesting. And so, of all of the guitars that you've ever worked on or repaired so far, what's been your favorite one? So, Mike, is there one in particular that definitely stands out as a favorite?
As far as a favorite, I'd say it changes from week to week. Every week I seem to get one that I'm like, oh, this is a killer guitar. But nothing that has really stuck out. I mean, we have a brand called Huss and Dalton at the shop. I'm a big fan of their stuff. They're local here in Virginia, so it's really quality instruments, and they sound awesome. I haven't had one that I've played that I haven't liked. I have ones that I like more than others, but they all sound good.
Mm-hmm. What about you?
For me, I'm currently in love with a Great Lakes guitar that I try to spend a little time with every day after work, actually. It's the Great Lakes guitars are actually no longer in production, but they used to be manufactured by the same people who taught me, which is the Gallup Guitar School. So Brian Gallup had a secondary line to his primary, and we actually have 3 of the models, and one called the Spartan is by far my favorite. So hopefully I'll be buying it soon.
That's awesome. So if you gentlemen think forward about 10 or 20 years, what do you hope that you have achieved by then when it comes to your guitars and your business?
I myself would like 10 or 20 years, I would hope to have a shop, a decent, could be in a garage, I'd be totally fine. But I would like to be putting out enough guitars to hopefully be making a living on it, maybe doing repairs more as a side gig and focus mostly on building. But I mean, repairs and building kind of go hand in hand, especially when you're first starting out. It's like, why are you gonna go do something different when you could be working on guitars all the time?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the good thing about repair is it gives you an insight on what to do and what not to do. It gives you the ability to play hundreds of different guitars. You can pick what you like from this one and what you like from that one and kind of mix and match things to kind of make it your own.
That's really interesting. And what about you in the future?
Similar ideas, actually. A lot of us luthiers joke that you kind of strive to struggle. It's the best you can hope for is the least you can hope for. But I hope to have a modest shop set up and where I can truly call myself a luthier and be developing my own line and just making a living and enjoying life.
Okay, and what words of advice do you have for people that might be watching and want to follow in your footsteps with repairing and building guitars?
One of the most unseen factors of guitar building is about 80% of it is sanding.
Oh yes,
Yes.
That's a good point.
Sanding, followed by more sanding.
Followed by more sanding.
Topped with more sanding.
And then wet sanding.
And then wet sanding, yeah. Finish is a whole nother beast.
Yeah, it's quite ridiculous. But you know, just like myself, I mean, I had no idea that there were schools like that out there until my father and I began researching it. So that would be my first piece of advice is, you know, you don't have to strike out on your own and try to do it just, you know, without any guidance. I mean, there are tons of reputable schools out there, and I would seek one of those out. There's people who will, you know, take you on and apprentice you, or
Yeah,
if you pay
trying
them
to
enough
find an
money.
apprenticeship
Yeah.
would be is significantly more difficult than I guess it would have been before there were schools and stuff. But if you're looking at building and you're not sure about it, go ahead, buy a kit guitar, slap it together, see what you like. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I mean,
Yeah.
worst case scenario, you spent $200 to $300.
Wow.
So
Yeah, the kit guitars are very
instead of
affordable.
going to school and going, oh, I hate this, and spending $2 to $3 grand before,
Right.
or however much, you know, whether or not you'll get your money back is another question too. So
Okay, well, I've enjoyed chatting with you all. And so, since you all started out in the beginning by saying that you used to play while you were teenagers, would you all be interested in playing a song for us before we depart today?
Well, we don't really know any songs together. However, we'd love to strum some chords for you and kind of display our instruments to some extent.
Wonderful. Okay, so you all sounded amazing. The guitars are beautiful. Now, did you all
Thank you.
make these guitars?
yes, we did.
Can you tell us a little bit about each of the guitars that you all have today?
Sure. So this is my guitar. I built it in my second year while at school. It's a guitar of sort of my own design. I kind of took two guitars and kind of melded them together. It's very similar to a dreadnought, but with a smaller waist, sort of like yours. It's got a curly redwood top, flame maple back binding, Bastogne walnut back and sides, Macaster ebony, fingerboard, bridge, and headstock veneer. It also has this different style of stringing called lateral compression, which allows the pressure to be more distributed around the entire soundboard and not focused just over the bridge. It also allows for lighter bracing on the inside, which would allow the top to move more freely. It also has a fan fret fingerboard, which just means that instead of the frets being perpendicular with the center line, they're fanned out like that, and it's actually two different scale lengths on one guitar.
It's beautiful.
Yes. Also, it has the arm bevel, which just allows for a more comfortable playing while you're sitting down.
And how long did it take you to actually assemble the guitar?
Approximately 7 weeks. Yeah, well, between building this and my arch top. So.
Wow, that's something. Wow. And what about your guitar?
Well, mine isn't as intricate as Mike's. However, it does have maple, Michigan sugar maple, to be more specific, back and sides. They are flamed, which is kind of the patterning you see existing on the wood here. It has a Sitka spruce top, and then an ebony bridge, fingerboard, as well as an overlay, which is that thin veneer right over the top of the mahogany neck. There's also a Corian inlay on the headstock as well. And I mean, it's a fantastic instrument. I really enjoy it. I never thought I'd be able to build something like this. The model is similar to a dreadnought, except, like Mike was saying, with the tighter waist. It's called a Monarch at the school that I built it at. And it took me approximately 7 to 8 weeks to construct it. But, you know, everyone builds at their own pace, so the class schedule is kind of, you know, tailored around each individual's progression through the course.
Wow, that's awesome. And so I see some tools here. Can you tell us a little bit about how you made these guitars? What was the process like, and what do each of these
Absolutely.
tools
Yeah,
do?
these are pretty common to what we use at Action Music, where we both work. The first thing we have here on my right are nut slotting files. The nut slotting files, this piece right here, it's actually crafted from bone, is the nut. And each string needs a slot to rest in as it comes down the fretboard over the nut itself.
So these files are just varied in different sizes for the individual strings. Next to this, we have some fretting tools. We could actually start with the straight edges. These are not straight edges, precision to like 1/1000th of an inch, which is a very common increment of measurement for us to be working with, which is something people don't realize, that we're measuring in thousandths of an inch.
It's very precise.
So basically it's just notched on both sides for different scales of guitars, whether it be Gibson or Fender scale. I also have a bass one, and this is just a regular straight edge. You'd use that for fretwork. You'd use it to get the fingerboard straight as opposed to the frets, because you're getting fretwork, so obviously there's something wrong with them. So you would use that.
Part of the installation process for frets is once they're installed, they can be uneven across the entire fingerboard, so you have to plane them or level them down so they're all even, and one can get over the other one. Otherwise, you'll generate what's called fret buzz, which is not very good.
Yes, which is bad.
Which brings us to this tool, actually.
Yes, this is used for fret leveling. It's just once again, machine precision, up to 1/1000th of an inch or something like that. It's just basically a block of aluminum, and you put some sandpaper on it and start leveling.
Yeah,
it's a pretty harsh tool.
It is. The O-beam has a lot of weight to it, so you don't really have to put a whole lot of force into leveling out the frets. You can kind of just glide it back and forth, and the sandpaper and the weight of the instrument will do itself.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And then we get into removing frets. We don't have any pullers, but that's all right. We have this for after the frets are out. You can use this for clearing out fret slots, mostly used for if there's binding, just because you can get in there. Usually it would be a full-size blade, which if there's binding on the sides, can't get in there. So that's what this tool was created for. It can also be coupled with the fret hook for just getting grime and glue or whatever else might be in hand gunk. So that's just used for scraping out those fret slots.
Yeah, Mike was just talking about actually binding kind of being a mitigating factor of how you clean things, and there also is for the installation process of each individual fret. If you have binding, you'll need these, which are called tang nippers. At the bottom of the fret, the top being the crown, the bottom of the fret is this barbed portion called the tang, and sometimes when you have binding, for instance, you can't have that hanging out the sides because the fretboard is bound, so you'd have to clip it in order to fit it. Alternatively, we have the tang nippers. So if the fret slots that you're crimpers, if we have the tang crimpers, so if you're trying to install a fret into a fret slot that is too wide, you can actually crimp the tang so it makes it a little wider and fits better.
Now, once you've got your tangs clipped and crimped. Installation, common method would be an arbor press or the hand method of a hammer. It has a brass side and a nylon side. Nylon side is obviously very soft for more of a fine tune tapping, but the brass side is due to the fact that you can still hit a fret and not ding it because the brass is softer than the metal the fret is made out of. Back to the nuts, however, when making nuts, there is this nifty tool that can be handmade too. It's just string spacing ruler. So what you do is mark your insides and then just line it up till you get 6 slots in between those 2 lines. It's a really handy tool. It beats measuring it out and
Absolutely.
yeah.
So once the frets are installed, getting back on track.
Yes, sorry, I just saw
No,
that.
it's
I wanted to get
I
that out of
totally
the way.
missed as well. We have this, which is a crowning file. Now the crowning file has, this is a 150 and 300 grit 2-sided crowning file. And what this does is it allows us to actually, after you have leveled the frets out, they're a little, flat. So you have to kind of round them over at the top. This is a perfect tool for such a job.
It's diamond, so it cuts super fast and cleanly. I mean, the hardest thing is you want to get just a peak on it, just a touch of flatness, so that and it has to be, it doesn't have to be, but I mean, it's preferred to be dead center of the fret because that would be the exact point of intonation for the note. So getting the crown just to be arced and flat enough on the top, but also round enough that you're not going to see it,
Wow.
is the difficult part. Now we can go more into the building aspect, would be the chisel.
Actually, yes, there are 2 tools that are pretty much very important in the crafting of instruments. One would be the chisel. This is a chisel I purchased while I was at school. And sharpening and maintaining your tools obviously is a very important aspect. I use this predominantly to carve braces on the inside of the instrument. And then we also have a pair of calipers. And calipers are how we get our exact measurements. You see the little teeth going to come all the way down.
Yes.
And these are used pretty much every step of the way, honestly. Yeah. If you ever came into the shop and you didn't have them on you, you had to go back to your desk and retrieve them in shame.
Yes.
Wow. Well, this is quite a process. I've learned so much today. Thank you all for coming by and telling us about how to build and repair guitars. And thank you all for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.